Hello, everyone. I am Cindy Ola with Sacred Garden Yoga. I'm actually here in the space of Sacred Garden Yoga, and I have with me my partner in crime, actually my partner in magic.
Partner in magic sounds better, doesn't it?
That's right. Jen Pisano. And we wanted to come on here and talk about, well, the main thing we want to talk about is intuition and what it takes to cultivate the importance of developing our intuition now, especially in the world that we're living in, and how to navigate, to be able to navigate and make good decisions for ourselves. It's so important for us to have our instinct and our intuition intact. And so we wanted to come in here and have a conversation about that. This past weekend, I was thinking about how we were going to talk about this. And this past weekend, I did a course with some ladies. It's called the Ascension course. But we were talking about the stages of alchemy. And I know we've talked about the stages of alchemy. And we're not going to go through all that because that's like a whole other topic, a whole other video. But the basic, like if you were to bring it down to two basic steps, there's the solve, the dissolution, and then the coagula, which is the bringing back together. And when I was reading over the stuff about the dissolution phase, when everything falls apart, it's about letting go of everything that you're not so that your soul can be more distilled. You know, like when you're extracting something beautiful, like an essential oil or getting something to its purest state, it has to go through this distillation process. And the process of alchemy is just that. It's like distilling your soul. And when you go through the dissolving part and you dissolve everything that you're not, then this is where your intuition comes forth. It begins to, in other words, all the doubts, all the stuff that the misinformation that we've been given about who we are and what our potential is, all that begins to dissolve, and we can then really know where our true power is, which is obviously, it's here.
But I think it allows us to awaken the gifts that we've had all along.
Exactly.
Right? So the clear senses are there. You come in with them. We turn them off and turn them on to protect ourselves. But once we start shedding things away, for me, it's more death and rebirth, right? For the shamanic journey, we're death and rebirth constantly over and over. That's the alchemy of life. As we're shedding that, then yeah, we can start tapping into our awareness differently because everything becomes medicine to us. We realize what we went through, what needed to shed, and where it's leading us to. And you can't always see that when you're in the process of death or the process of dissolving things. That part could feel muddy, it could feel prickly, it could feel shitty, right? But as we start to shed it away and be cleansed and purified, where the light really starts to come in, I think that's when those times of intuition spark even deeper and more profoundly. Not that they weren't there before. I think they just get louder because we've turned off the noise. We've let go of the stuff that was suppressing it.
Mm-hmm. And it was never really encouraged for most of us anyways, for that intuition to be developed.
Well, for women in general, we weren't taken seriously, right? It's the same as going with your gut. It's going with your gut. It's trusting that intuition. And to me, it is one of the most valuable gifts that we have. I think everybody has it, whether they choose to accept that or not. But this is something not just for the magical life that we lead, but I mean, I was a corporate mystic my whole life, right? You use intuition as a mother, as a businesswoman, as a leader in your community. Like that, those internal stirrings are what get you where you need to go, and they keep you safe. They keep you away from the wrong places.
Mm-hmm. And they allow you to make better decisions for yourself. And part of it is also learning how to trust it. And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, because it wasn't necessarily one of those things that it was encouraged for us to develop our intuition. If anything, for a lot of people, it was discouraged. You know, you're supposed to listen to the more rational part of your mind. Does this make sense rationally, to where our instincts or our intuition wasn't encouraged to be developed? Right. And through the process of regaining it and letting it become more intact, it's learning how to trust and we hear those intuitive voices probably all the time, but we haven't been taught how to trust it.
And that's a skill set in itself, I think, the trusting, and that gets deeper and deeper the longer we practice, or at least it has been for me. It's a lesson that always circles back around, is to trust what comes through. And it does not make rational sense. I think that's why it's hard to trust it, or why people doubt it, because it's the crazy things that it tells us to do. But when we actually listen and then follow it all the way through, that's when the biggest transformations happen every single time. And it cuts out all the detours if we would just listen.
Well, the voice of the intuition, I've always found too, it's not always the loudest voice. It can be at times if you're actually in danger. If you're in clear and present danger and something's like a bear's chasing after you or something, then yes, your intuition is probably going to be extra loud. But in your everyday living, the intuition, the voice of the intuition is usually not the loudest voice, but it is usually that first one.
And it's not always a voice.
It
It could be a knowing. It's just a knowing for a lot of people. And I think that causes confusion because people are expecting to get the voice, but sometimes it's just, you know what you know, and you have no idea how you know it. And I think that's just as valuable to take that and recognize it, that is your intuition. There's these divine sparks that are speaking to us through our spiritual gifts, and everybody's gifts are a little bit different. There's, different categories of the gifts, but the way that they speak to us is unique to us. And it's like learning a language. We have to learn how to decipher it and how to have discernment with what comes through, how it comes through. For some people, they might get full body chills. That could be their yes. For somebody else, that might be their no, or tightness in the solar plexus, whatever it may be. That could be the warning sign where somebody else might hear that strong voice, stop. So I think it's when we do this work and we practice, that's why I love circle work. And I love what you and I do together in groups, because people get to hear everybody else's experiences and they start realizing that they are more gifted than they realize. Just things that they've grown up with their whole life that they've just kind of set on the back burner is actually a part of their intuitive strength.
Absolutely. And when the intuition comes in, however it comes in through you, yes, we tend to doubt it. It's like the intuition comes in. It's usually, again, maybe not the loudest knowing or the loudest voice or the loudest feeling, but then there's a second wave that comes through that wants to come in and say, well, you know what, that just doesn't make any sense. And, I don't know if that's right. And you start to second guess it. Sorry, this might be happening. You got nice Mercury. Mercury is being nice or not very nice today. He's in retrograde, so my video might be going in and out. But anyways, then that second wave, that second voice or that second rational part of you comes in. And what we tend to do is we will disempower our intuition. We'll decide, oh, well, that voice, well, that didn't make any sense. I'm not going to follow that. I'm going to follow this rational patterning that I have going on right now. And we end up, taking the advice of that, taking that path. And then we learn the lessons from that too. You're like, oh, well, maybe this wasn't the best decision that I made. But how often do we do that? We don't trust the initial gut instinct or the initial voice. We say, oh, that's crazy. We rationalize our way out of it. We don't do the thing that we're going to do, usually because of fear. Because your intuition is going to often tell you to do things that your rational mind is like, no. Your rational mind.
It takes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to say, exactly. It's going to say, no, don't do that. The fear will come in to start to make excuses for not doing that thing. And then we end up getting stuck in that cycle, in that rut of whatever cycle that we usually get stuck in.
But that's what
your
these practices,
intuition has been there all along trying to get you out, but we haven't been listening to it.
It's a loop. Yeah, it loops. Yes. But if you get into the heart of the practice, that gets easier and easier and easier, and we get better and better. And at least for me, I just posted about this morning. When I skip my practices, my day is shaky. And I've been doing this as long as you have. We've been doing this, 3 decades at least. the practice is essential. And the more we practice, the more we can trust those voices and those whispers and those knowings, because we're centered, grounded. We get curious about life instead of scared of what's coming through. And when I look at it as an adventure and I'm curious, I'm like, ooh, you want me to do what? Like when I'm able to be in that space, but I can only be in that space when I'm in my practice, because I'm centered and grounded and I'm calm. I can't trust that voice when I'm an emotional basket case. That's when ego will win every single time. And it will take me in that pattern because that's my survival. Right? But those practices bring us into a different place, because they bring us inward into that place of peace and joy. And that's where I can expand into pleasure, and I can trust not only the wisdom that's coming through but also that I'm going to be okay with the outcome, that it's safe, right? Because that divine voice is never going to take you in the path of danger, ever.
It will take you out of the place of discomfort. It'll take it to a place that feels like danger to your ego. But for your higher self, for the evolution of you, it's going to take you exactly where you need to go for your next stage.
For your highest expansion. Yeah, that's what so it's always taking you down the path, and it's trying to save you the heartache of taking all the detours. And with that being said, I agree with you. There's no mistakes. Whether you listen or you don't, you're going to learn something along the way. It's just how long do you want to take to learn it?
Exactly. Listening to your intuition, following those voices, save you time.
I think it saves you time, money, and resources, because all of the stress and the errors that we make, financial, personal, whatever it may be, those detours, they can be destructive in their own way. Are we learning life lessons? Absolutely. But if we follow the intuition, we can save ourselves from a lot of heartache.
And you were mentioning the practices that we have to develop our intuition and the importance of that. And yes, creating the space for yourself, whether it's a morning ritual, whether it's a meditation practice or a yoga practice, getting it into that space to where your perception is higher. We were talking about, you and I were having this conversation yesterday, and I was actually talking about it in class today, how we can't solve a problem at the level of the problem. That's a famous saying, right? But we try to solve the problem at the level of the problem, but it's only going to create solutions that are going to be at the level of the problem itself. Where if we really want to know where the solution is, it's at a different level. It's like you got to raise your perspective.
Yeah, as you raise your perspective, you raise your
perspective to come out of the problem into more of that expansive state where you are fresh and are able to listen and know and feel your intuitive voice or your intuitive knowing.
Well, to me, when you get to that space, you're listening with your divine essence instead of your human mind. And that makes all the difference in the world. It makes all the difference. Or from us, when our shamanic, it's looking at things from that bird's eye view. When you're above the problem, then it looks way different. When you're in the thick of it, it looks like there's no hope, and often feels like there's no hope.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that too. I totally get it. I've been caught up in it where you get sucked into the cycle of that despair, and you can't. Yeah, and it feels like a loop. You can't get out of the loop. But what's going to push you out of the loop is doing something different, doing something. Whether it's taking a walk out in nature, doing a ritual, or doing a ceremony, doing a meditation practice. That's going to snap you out of the circuit of the problem and reach you up. We have this, and for the shamanic beings, this is, or for those who are even not, wonder what this is. This is the Indian Trinity. So we got the serpent, which is at the bottom, which is the subconscious. It's all the stuff that's on the inside and underneath, and we got the cougar, which is the conscious, it's the everyday that we live in. And what we're talking about here is viewing things from the level of, in this Trinity, it's the condor. In this part of the world, it would be the eagle or perhaps the hawk.
Mm-hmm.
So viewing things from the level of the condor or the hawk or the eagle, rising above it and seeing the bigger picture.
And what I love about that is it allows you to soar like those birds soar, and you see them and they're so graceful, right? It allows you to receive the information with ease and grace and find your way out of chaos or problems or struggle or whatever it may be without so much force. Like, I think we try to force ourselves. I know I grew up that way. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, just keep on moving. It didn't matter what your physical body felt like, your emotional body felt like, you just kept trucking through. But when we go to this higher states of consciousness and we're allowing ourselves to raise our vibration and see things from that bird's eye view, it makes everything flow. And that's where the magic is for me. Like, I want to take the mundane and make it magical. I want to take what is hard and make it easy. I think everything in life needs to be simplified. We've done it the hard way too long. Like, I know I did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're almost just, you and I are almost half a century. So I'm doing things the easy way this last 50 years or however long I make it.
That's the beauty of the age, isn't it?
It's the beauty of age. Yeah, we thought we had to do it the hard.
About this, because I'm 49 years old. You turned 49.
49.
Yes, you already turned 49.
Yeah, you're not my elder anymore.
I know, right? But how this age and the season of our life, that's one of the things that happens, isn't it? We tend to drop. We realize how we've been making things way too hard for ourselves. It's the
and part of that brings us back into the intuition too, right? Because it gets stronger and more potent, because we've paid more attention to it. Now, some people don't enter their spiritual journey until they're our age or even older, but for me, it's just kept getting more juicy, more potent. And the more potent it's gotten, the more I trust it, because it always works out. When I trust it, it works out. That makes it easier and easier and easier to trust it. And the more you trust it, the more the other gifts all turn on. And everything complements each other. So you've got your intuition, you've got your spirit guides, you've got your archangels, you've got all of these sensations that happen in your body that are your inner lie detector. It's like the best thing ever. But in order to access it, we have to stay in those foundational practices of being centered and grounded and for me curious, right? And just being able to like embrace the unknown. That's a huge part of it, I think, for a lot of people where they do have distrust, is it's that not knowing. And I get it. I was a control freak the first half of my life. When you're trying to control, it is scary as hell to let go and say, okay, I'm following this guidance and I have no idea where it's leading me. And I find for myself, and chime in on this too, intuition doesn't tell you every step right at the same time. It's take this step, take this step, take this step. And sometimes for people that's scary. For me now, it is so reassuring, because if I had all the steps, it would be overwhelming. It would feel like too much that I'm supposed to do this big thing. But if you just trust that next little step, which might be, hey, call Cindy today, check on her, or have you went outside and checked on your neighbor, whatever it may be, those little, I call them like little divine clues. When you do those little things, that's your intuition. And it takes us deeper and deeper into our journey of trust. And it expands us on all levels. For me, that's wealth to me. It's allowing us to really come into our spiritual center, our connection with self. It's building the relationship with our self, with the divine, with each other, with our communities. It allows money to flow more easily. Like, I don't know about you, but financial abundance gets blocked so easily when we don't trust our intuition, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. And talking about the intuition in this way, it doesn't mean that all your problems are going to disappear and go away. I mean, life is going to continue to happen, which is why it's so important to have this part of you developed. Because as you move on through life, shit's still gonna happen.
It's still
not
gonna
like
happen.
it's not like the storm is gonna stop. The
No, life
storm is gonna
happens.
continue, and some storms are gonna be so huge. And just because you're on a spiritual journey, that doesn't mean that all your problems go away. It doesn't mean that at all. You
No,
know,
what
'cause
means is though, it's your
things are gonna happen,
problems.
but you're able to navigate the storms better
Yes,
when
and
you have that part of you
so that's your
developed.
GPS system. You and I are on board with that. The intuition, the spiritual gifts, the clear senses is your navigational system. It's
Yes.
your internal GPS. And you trusting that, owning that, harnessing the power within it makes everything else feel richer. It just is so expansive. And it just keeps getting better and better and better if we allow it. And you have to feel worthy of it to allow it. That's a whole nother episode, but
I know, yeah. But yeah, so in talking about the things that help to cultivate, develop our intuition, do you have any favorite practices that you like to do, Jim?
oh goodness, there's things that I don't ever not do, which is very, very basic and simple things that we've done in our courses, even just starting the day. I need to start the day with music. It grounds me, it balances me, it helps me start my morning well. I put intentions in my morning drink, whether it's tea, coffee, cacao. And I like to light my candles and my incense, and I go into breath work now every morning. And that is something that is now, thankfully, that's non-negotiable. That's my time. Like I need that. When I skip it, which I was doing because of doctor's appointments and all the things that life happening, it made my life shaky and uneasy and more chaotic in the mornings. Like that just sets the tone of the day. It's just one of those things. The other thing I love to do is trance dance. Like when life is hard and things are happening, I love going into just this trance dance and allowing it to be a moving meditation. I'm more of a meditator that does active meditations.
Me too. I'm definitely a body mover. I must move my body every day.
Yeah.
And it's because of that, because I can feel that if I don't, because your body is the instrument from which all your intuition communicates through. And if your body is clogged with stuff or with junk, then that also has an effect on how well you can hear or feel or know. Like if your body is just clogged up with stagnation, it's going to make it a lot harder to hear, or to listen, or to understand what's going on.
Or just the subtle energy shifts, I think too. And that's such part of intuition too, in my opinion, is just the subtle energy differences. That could be when somebody enters a room, just noticing your body and how it contracts or expands. This comes in really handy if you guys are dating or you're interviewing or just life in general, knowing who's good for you, who might not be. Like those little tiny sensations, you have to pay attention to them. And there's so much wisdom in it. And it's saved me time and time again. I don't know about you, but that's a big one for me, that just that ebb and flow, the contraction and the expansion, that feeling is one of the things that I love to pay attention to always.
And the importance of maintaining the practice, because I've been practicing yoga, teaching yoga for many, 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 many years, but that doesn't mean that I can just stop and then everything will be okay. It is a lifestyle. It's something that you have to continue to feed, continue to nurture, and to continue to practice. There's a consistency that must be weaved into your practice to keep everything fine-tuned. Like, giving the example, if you're maintaining a home or maintaining a house, you can't clean your house one time and expect that to take you. That would be nice.
That would be fabulous.
The house and do the dishes and do the laundry one time, and then that's going to carry you through the rest of your life. it's a constant maintenance, and it doesn't matter how long you've been practicing. You could, you could be practicing for 20, 30 years, but if you stop, it's going to affect things. It's going to make a difference. So the maintenance is an important part of the practice to keep you centered. Because like you said, you got busy for just the time being, you got busy with doctor's appointments, because life does that. It brings it tests you,
all at once.
It only tests you, it tests your endurance, it tests your perseverance. But when you forget, or you just don't feel like you have the time, it does make a difference. And again, that happens no matter how long you've been, that happens to the most mature of practitioners. So the idea,
and I think it's important to give yourself grace too, like that it is going to happen. So don't beat yourself and judge yourself when it happens. It's going to happen. The awareness for me on that is to make sure you come back to it as soon as possible, so you can get back in alignment. And for me, it's all about soul alignment and living my life as an everyday ceremony. Sometimes you can't get up and do it at the exact same time that you do every day, or what have you. And that's what happened to me. So I went through all these health struggles, and then I had to take whatever doctor's appointments I could. And I was all over the place and all over the city. So it disrupted my practice, but health has to come first. So now I'm back getting on track. But it was such a beautiful gift, because it let me see the drastic difference. And it allowed me to understand how potent the simplest of practices really are, and how they affect my life. Because you think, oh, it's okay, I just skip that today. But wow, what a drastic difference of how I felt. Even the physical pain that I'm going through right now, the difference between when I'm practicing versus when I'm not. Just different what my body can cope with.
Yes, yeah. It's so valuable. It's such an important part of navigating us through our life, our intuition. And I made a video before, this was maybe a year ago or so, where I was talking about the differences between the intuition and the trauma response. Because I get that question a lot too. It's like, okay, now is this truly my intuition, or is this something else?
And that's where discernment comes in, right?
Is it a trauma response? And one of the practices, why we talk about so much right now about why we're talking so much about the consistency, is the consistency in your practice also helps to help you clear, to heal some of those trauma feelings, the trauma drama that we're holding on to. The more you do the work to heal, or to integrate, or to to understand, or to know the trauma that you've been through, it won't come up so harshly every single time you have to make a big decision in your life. And the trauma response is usually that second voice. We were talking about earlier, the first voice is going to be the voice of your intuition. The trauma response is going to ride on the coattails of the intuition and say, no, 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 fear, fear, fear. We can't do that. That means I have to change things. All your protective mechanisms light up. All of the alarms go off. So that second response is usually the trauma response. So the more work that we can do, like the meditation practices, or even if that means therapy for you, if you have more intense, if you've gone through more intense trauma in your life,
or mentor coaching, just having somebody coaching, and for me, even the
teachers,
the group work, also just to have the support of a sisterhood. And I don't mean like the fluffy trendy word sisterhood. I mean like true, these people have your back, and they're holding you in space where there's no judgment. And that is the power of the circles, that when we bring people together, it's not just a class or a course. It really is this solid foundation to hold people up while they're making major lifestyle shifts, lifestyle changes, and so that they can get through the work with more ease, and feel held, and I think that's such a big thing, because I know for myself, I was always Miss Independent, did everything on my own, always did things the hard way, felt like I needed to do it on my own. And when you're raised and you're always doing things that way, it's a little bit hard to start leaning on somebody else. But once you do that and you also trust that path, a whole nother wound to heal, to be able to trust that path, but it accelerates and amplifies the work so much, because as we celebrate each other and witness each other, that is such a huge part of all of this, the spiritual development, the transformations, the expansion on all levels. I think it's so important that we come together in each other's own strengths, and like my strength might help you with one of your weaknesses and vice versa. We help balance each other. And by doing that, we all stretch. It's always a both and, in my opinion. We're always like learning and receiving at the same time. And it's pliable. You can feel the power in the energy when people come together that are like-minded. And not just anybody, I mean, people that are really ready to change their life, people who are ready to make an impact in their life, their households, their community. Like, they're going to do the work, even if it's
you
a
have the
little bit
desire.
challenging.
There's that it's almost like this burning desire, that hunger. I call it, just a hunger where you must.
Right.
It's like you just feel like you have to do this.
Yeah, it starts with a nudge, and then it kind of
Mhm.
turns into a jab and kind of a push. It's like you just know what you know. For me, the people I love teaching the most, you and I've talked about this, I love the people that just don't want to stick their toe in. I want the people that want to dive in. Like, not because you just are curious, although that's fun too. I want really to take people on a journey because I want the transformation for them. Often more than they want it for themselves, but I want to make sure that they're going to stick through it and really get through that. And in order to do that, you have to want it. It's a longing. You can still be nervous, but there's still that desire.
Well, in order to face those parts of yourself, in order to face the parts that have been wounded, so that you can do what you need to do with that. So you can restore yourself back to wholeness again. It takes a hunger. It takes a drive, because it's not easy work. It's challenging work that's going to challenge you on every level of your being. For some, it's some of the most challenging things that you do. I mean,
and it depends where you are on your journey and how much work you've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's got a different level because of our life experiences, and there's going to have ebbs and flows in that. But when you have a support system, it doesn't have to be so hard. And I think so many people make it harder than it needs to be, because they're scared to ask for help. They're scared to invest in a coach. They're scared to ask for mentorship. But when we trust, again, that intuition, I've made some really scary moves on hiring mentors, right? Like, and really making that investment in myself. And it's scary to pay somebody that kind of money. But oh my gosh, the movement that happens in my life is priceless.
Yeah. I mean, it is an acceleration. All the, the work that I've gone through, and even the work that I offer to people, it's to simply save time. Yeah, we're talking about, saving time, saving resources. You can either go ahead and get this done now, or you can wait. Like, God doesn't care when you do it. Like, God really doesn't care. You can do the work now, or you can do the work, 3-4 lifetimes from now. Exactly. But it's like, why wait anymore? Why sit in the suffering? Why sit in the drama? Why continue on that spiral when there's an opportunity for you to, to get out of that karmic loop?
Right. And there's so much more available now than like when you and I entered. There wasn't all of these Zoom options and all of the information that's at people's fingertips. So there's so much available so that people don't have to sit in that stuff, and they don't have to be alone. They don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah. And as I said, that's an important part of the work, to then clear, again, just clear. That's part of the dissolution, dissolving everything that you're not, dissolving those old stories, those old patterns, And then the voice of your intuition or the inner knowing, it'll come through, because then it's not sabotaged by the trauma responses that come in and say, no, 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 because the trauma responses, they speak extra loud. Like the voice of your intuition, it's clear. The voice of your intuition usually doesn't have a whole lot of emotions tied behind it. It's just like this clear feeling, this clear knowing. There's not a whole lot of emotion to it. A trauma response is highly emotional.
And it's got those peaks and valleys.
That's another way that you can tell the difference between the two. All right, is this my intuition, or is this like just another fear loop that's coming in trying to keep me safe?
And again, the sensations within the physical body and what that feels like. Intuition feels peaceful. Even when it's a crazy thing that it's asking you to do, it's still got a peace to it or a joy and pleasure to it in some way.
It's not going to trigger your fear.
No.
No, I mean, at least not initially. Your intuition will trigger the fear of your trauma, but it's not going to trigger like a true fear. Again, unless you're actually being chased by a bear or something, like you're really actually in danger at that moment. But anyways, yeah, so the importance of trusting yourself, knowing that, yes, you are your own internal GPS, and how then that keeps you from being deceived. And that, I feel, is what's so important, especially now during this time when there is so much information that's out there, so much information that's being shared on multiple platforms. And then, and that there's nefarious things out there too. Like there are people out there who don't necessarily have your highest interest in mind.
No,
They
even if
have
it's
their
labeled spiritual. And I think that's important for
they
people
have
to
their
know.
own agenda.
Right. Yes. And that's in every industry, but it's something that definitely, if you can tap into that higher self and ask, is this for my highest good? And just listen, feel, know for that yes or no. And that's one of the things I know you and I have really tried to do within our community is we want to get rid of all of the million different things of all the Google searches and all, and just bring it in so that people have solid information that they can count on in one place.
Yes. And we do have a course coming up.
We
It's actually
do.
called Intuition.
Starts in July. I'm super excited about it too.
I know, me too. We'll be working with some of the cosmic influence as well to help us develop our intuition, but we'll also be going through some practices, giving you some practices to do to help with that, and the importance of that, because it's really easy not to practice. It's easy to practice, but it's easy not to practice.
Well, things get in the way. I mean, I think, again, that's why a group, when you have something to go to, at least you've got a dedicated time. Like for me, when I'm doing my own practice, I will join a mastermind just to make sure I keep myself on point with my business, right? With my spiritual practices, like I put it on my Google Calendar. Like I have to have that time locked out because something else will easily slide in there if I don't. So when we have a group class or a workshop or whatever it may be, I think that's the beauty and the value in it too, is because it keeps you accountable with yourself. And then it's more exciting and fun to grow with everybody else. And you never know what other gifts are going to unlock by you doing that. Because my belief is that when we come together and we're with each other, we're igniting each other. So you and I are igniters, but also the students are igniters in their own way too, because everybody has this energetic imprint. And when certain people gather, and to me, whoever registers, it's very purposeful when they come together in that circle, in that, whether it's a ceremony, a class, a practice, whatever it may be, that collective energy has its own distinct magic. And
Mhm.
each class is so different because of that, the way we work. And it's just, that's what makes it delicious for me to teach, right? Because we've got this new energy. We're still teaching our practices, but now we can go at it a different way because everybody receives things differently. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the zones of genius you and I have, is that we can change things up very easily to make sure that it fits the student and where they are on their journey.
Yes, yes. And it's such important work. I mean, it really is such important work to do for yourself. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you can believe in the magical stuff, or you maybe you don't. It doesn't matter. It's like intuition is a part of everybody. Whether you're in the magical realm, again, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're a mother, whether you're this, whether you're that, it is a key component, as far as I'm concerned, to leading a life that feels meaningful and purposeful, and again, just keeping you on track and making good decisions.
And just say, yeah, get
Good
rid of that
decisions for yourself,
self-doubting.
making
Yeah.
good decisions for your family, making good decisions, good financial decisions, whatever that means. It's not, intuition is not just for magical people. Intuition is built into everybody. And everybody can receive benefit from it, like tremendous benefit from it.
It's so good.
It's
so good. You need to sign up. That's what we're telling you. Come to our class. Your life will be forever changed.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to say about intuition and
I have so much to say, but I think that's a lot. I don't want to overwhelm people. Let's drop the links in the comments for everybody, and you can reach out to me directly, Cindy directly. We want to make sure that it's the right place for you. Sacred space is really important to both of us. We want everybody to feel at home. And as much as I want you to feel comfy, we also want to be able to make sure that you are right for the program so that we can help you stretch and grow. We don't want people just to be there. We want to make sure you're there with the right purpose and that we can get you where you want to go. It's important to us.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. You have a lovely, lovely rest of your week. And big love and magic.